let's not start with what Reagan said or what Trump said or what anybody said, what Marx said. Let's start with what Jesus said and apply that across everything. What does the Old Testament say? What do the psalmists say? And then how does that apply? And it's okay if we come to different policy conclusions while we're trying to apply the Sermon on the Mount to modern living, because we're going to come to different policy conclusions.
Phil, welcome to the happy hour.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here for less than an hour.
I'm so happy that you're here too. And I just need to tell everyone that's listening is that if you're my real friend in real life, but also if you're an Instagram follower of mine, I talk about your podcast, The Holy Post, all the time. So it feels a little dream worthy to have you over here.
Oh man. I'm so excited to be here. Hello, everyone who hears Jamie talk about my podcast all the time.
Although one time, Phil, I'm not going to lie.
Yes.
I had the podcast on when the kids were in the car and my kids were like, how do I know that? Like,
Yes.
what is this? How do I know this person?
Is that voice?
I
It's
was like,
strangely familiar.
I was like, oh, you know it because your childhood, this voice raised you. That's
Oh,
how
yeah,
you know this
all
voice.
all I have to do is just turn a little knob internally about 2 notches, and suddenly I go, hi, kids, I'm Bob the Tomato. It's so close. It's just under the surface all the time.
Well, thanks for helping me raise my kids when they were little. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad.
Okay, welcome to the happy hour. Introduce yourself. Tell people what you do. I know you do the Holy Post. What else do you do?
I'm Phil Visher. I'm an author, filmmaker, speaker, podcast host. I do a lot of, I like to make things is really what it boils down to. Hello, my name is Phil, and I like to make things.
Have you always liked to make things?
Yes, always. Like
Okay.
I was making stop motion animated films when I was like 8 years old, trying to figure out how to work a camera and point it at Legos or G.I. Joes and make them move a frame at a time. I just love making things.
I love that. I have my oldest son wants to make movies. And so, and I read one of his college essays and he talked about the first camera he got. And I'm like, man, this kid might actually make movies because he loves all parts of it. So it's interesting and fun.
Yes. Well, making movies has never been easier unless you want to get paid to do it. And then that's a challenge. But it's very easy to make movies. You just need your phone and maybe a laptop, or maybe not even a laptop. You can do half of everything on your phone now.
I wonder what percentage of people who are making movies are making money off making movies.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a whole lot of people working at Starbucks for health insurance,
right,
and pursuing their indie movie dreams. But I mean that includes influencers on TikTok that are kind of doing the same thing. They're making little movies, they're making content, and they're trying to figure out can I generate any sort of a living doing this, or is this just something that I do for fun?
And it's crazy because if you ask young kids growing up what they want to do, they want to make they want to be famous.
Yeah,
they want to make movies. They want to be an influencer. It's a little scary, isn't it?
That's a little scary. I think we're hitting a point, kind of a peak content phase, where half of the world's population at any given moment is making content and the other half is watching the content. And we're going to have to work out some kind of deal where then we switch so that the other half gets a chance to make content.
Well, I was just going to ask, how long can this go on? I mean, you've been podcasting since 2012, right?
Yeah.
I've been podcasting since 2014. So both of us are kind of like, oh, you've been here for a while.
We've been here for a while.
But now, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows.
Yeah.
As a creator, do you think that we can just keep making hundreds and hundreds of shows, or is there going to be a bottleneck?
I think in many things, because media production has become so democratized, anybody can become a media outlet. And literally anyone, almost anyone on the planet can be a broadcaster, a TV broadcaster, a radio broadcaster. So something that was very elite 50 years ago is now completely accessible to everyone on Earth, everyone with a phone.
How does that make Barbara Walters feel?
And, well, she's dead, so she doesn't feel much of anything.
I forgot she's passed.
Yeah, yes.
Wow.
She's not really having a feeling about that right now, Jamie. But what that means is that creating content is now kind of a part of everyday life for a huge portion of humanity,
Uh-huh.
with zero to no expectation that it's what they do vocationally.
Wow.
So media becomes vocational for a much smaller percentage of people that are actually engaged in the production of
Mm-hmm.
media.
How does that make you feel as someone who this is your job and your dream and your passion? You create media because you are born to create.
Yeah.
And then we've got Johnny and Sarah who just are popping up things on TikTok left and right.
Yeah, the only time you start to like, oh, well, that kind of smarts is when you'll see kids on YouTube that are just playing with their toys, and then you read that they made $10 million last year.
It
Like
is bonkers.
I'm sorry, I don't. This is a fallen world, because that
Right.
should not even be possible.
This should not be okay, because I'm
I
actually
work
working
so
hard at my job.
I work so hard to create compelling content, and then some dad is following around his toddler with his phone, and
Oh.
and he just bought a new house.
Dang, I wish I would have just been on the cusp of that when I had little
Yeah,
kids. What were we
yeah.
thinking?
There is a part of it where it's kind of exciting that it's such a wild west of opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also, you can see how weird human nature is by the things that pop.
God.
It's like, seriously, that
Right?
that
Who would have
popped?
thought? Yeah.
That's what we're excited about today. That. And that's a little, it kind of gives you pause. It kind
Yeah.
of makes
Yeah.
you want to slow down and read a psalm or something. Are there any
Something.
psalms about this?
We need a rest.
Yes, somewhere is for the people will not understand what media makes sense anymore. Oh Lord,
It's got to be there somewhere.
it's in there.
Eugene
somewhere.
Peterson had to put that in the message.
Oh yeah.
Phil, I mentioned you've been podcasting since 2012. You are Holy Post, the podcast, and
Yes.
I love that show so much. And I
Thank
just
you.
want to take a minute to tell you why I love it.
Okay.
And this, I love it for a lot of reasons. So I've been podcasting since 2014. Been a follower of Jesus for my whole life. My husband's a pastor. I'm telling you this, my audience probably knows this. I have 4 kids. 3 of them joined our family through adoption, and 3 of them are Black. So I've got this family that looks different in this current culture. It's just hard, and church is hard, and all these things. And I found your podcast. I can't remember. We kind of judge things by, was it pre 2016 or post 2016?
Right.
And I think I found it post 2016. And the way I describe what you guys have done for me, you and Sky and Caitlin and Christian, all the hosts of the show, you have helped me become a really deep thinker. And not to be weird, it can kind of make me get teary-eyed, because I've grown so much in my faith in the last 10 years. And I've grown so much in my understanding of like people who don't look and act and grown up like me. And part of that is because my family has forced me into that situation. The current culture has forced me in that. But I just want to say too, that you guys have really been a big part of that. So that's my like heartfelt thank you for the work you've done.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you. I did notice early on, when we started dealing with topics like race, things became kind of touchy. Like the first few years, did you notice that point where things became kind of touchy in the church?
Yeah.
The first few years of the podcast, the audience was largely, hey, that's Bob the Tomato. And he's making voices and he's being funny. Let's listen to this. And we were still concerned about the state of evangelicalism, and one of our first episodes was with Oz Guinness, just talking about, does the term evangelical still have meaning in our culture?
And that
today?
was in 2012, 2013?
That was in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we're still asking that question.
Still asking the same freaking question 11 years later, and we still don't quite have the answer. But still, most of the audience was, okay, whatever. He's concerned about evangelicalism, but he just did Mr. Nezer's voice. Ha, 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 ha. And then Trump kind of... when we woke up to Trump that fateful morning and realized, and then saw the results for what percentage of white evangelicals voted for Trump, not that they, that we thought, oh, you should have all voted for Hillary Clinton, but like, no, if you don't like either, if you can't put your name by either, then abstain. You vote third
Mm-hmm.
party, just do something else. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how you can put your name next to that fellow.
Mm.
And when we started talking about that, things really changed, and a lot of the audience that was just, hey, we love VeggieTales and he does funny voices, where it was
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, I don't like him anymore.
Yeah.
You're taking positions that I do not like. I don't appreciate. You're
Mm-hmm.
making me feel like I shouldn't have done something that I did. We're out. But then also when we start talking about race, in I guess that was about the same time. A lot of the new people started showing up. And many of the first new people that showed up were people that had multiracial families.
Mm.
There were a whole lot of people who said, I used to think everything was very clear and simple and everything I had inherited was true. And then I walked back into my church, with my African-American child or my Latino child or my adopted child from, a whole nother culture. And I saw the way people treated them or looked at them, or I watched them walk out into the world without me and saw what experiences they had. And suddenly, it's one of those moments where the scales fall off your eyes. Yep. And you say, I have been looking at the world through a filter of my own tradition and my own experience. And it is not universal. It is not even universal in the church. It is universal in my cul-de-sac in the church. And I've been so sheltered in my cul-de-sac of my part of the church that I'm now looking and seeing how big the church is, how diverse the church is, and how my experience is not the experience. And some of those people were the first ones to say, we're here to listen to your show, not because you do funny VeggieTales voices sometime, but because we desperately need this. Because you're keeping us sane. And I remember I took my because I have two grandkids now, and we took them to an indoor water park. Have you ever been to an indoor water park?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just muggy.
Oh yeah, it's muggy, and there's just like chlorine spritzers in the air. They just squirt you in the eyes with chlorine, so you're just So this is in Wisconsin, and it's a bunch of white pasty, Northern Illinois Wisconsinites standing in chlorinated air, just trying not to make eye contact. And this guy, white pasty guy, comes kind of sidles up next to me a little too close for my taste, because I'm in, my bathing suit indoors in November, and so is he. And then he leans over and he whispers, I just wanted to tell you, I'm a pastor from Champaign-Urbana, and you guys are keeping me sane. And he kind of whispered it under his breath, and then he just kind of disappeared back into the crowd. And I thought, wow, we're doing something. I didn't think it was what we would be doing. I didn't set out to. I don't even know how to describe what it is. But it's a lifeline for a whole lot of people, and that motivates me to keep doing it, even though, I also have people saying I'm never going to watch another VeggieTales video.
For sure.
And now that I think about it, I never liked them in the first place.
Now that they really think about it,
now that I think back, I always hated that tomato.
Yeah. Well, you are doing something like that. And I think we see that. And I want to talk a little bit about Christian media. I remember, so for my particular platform and my show, anytime, like, my friends will ask me, what do you get pushback on? And I live in Austin, Texas. And so we're right down here on the border. We've got a lot of things happening here with
So you live in a blue dot in a red sea.
100%. And if I talk about not just race, but if I talk about systematic injustice that exists and is still here, if I talk about immigration, and if I talk about pro-life being more than just anti-abortion, these three things, which I think you understand.
Why would you even?
These are the three things that people say, oh, you're liberal now, or, oh, what are we talking about this for? Those are the things. And so I felt this kind of camaraderie when I listen to you guys, and I feel less alone. That is the truth, know? And
it is disturbing, the impulse that you see in our culture and in the church to always be sniffing people out to say, are you one of us or are you one of them? Yes. Are you one of us? Are you one of them? And if you talk a certain way, we'll say, okay, you're one of us. If you suddenly use, systemic injustice, boy, that's a trigger phrase. white privilege. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
wait, did he just say white privilege? That's a one of them phrase. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
one of us phrase.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the desire to have everybody cataloged onto teams,
Mm-hmm.
the tribalism within the church that has nothing to do with Jesus and has everything to do with, conservative or liberal politics
Mm-hmm.
is I think one of the things that we push against the most. But you will also get the most pushback when you push. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
personal for a whole lot of
Yeah.
people.
It's interesting because we see this, where it's 2020, fall of 2023. Next year, we're in election year, which I'm already nervous about 2024.
Whee!
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to love your show. I have so much to listen to you guys
Oh
talk about.
boy.
But I think when you say us versus them, what I feel that is such a tragic thing is that the politics does this really, really well. I mean, if you just look at the Republican Party, you cannot ever disagree with anything that it is, or you're out. And we've
Right.
seen that
Right.
literally happen. But it has infiltrated into the church, and that is what is so alarming and concerning to me as well. Is there's no longer a way that we can say, hey, you know what? I don't even need to say my political allegiance. First of all, I want to have only allegiance to Jesus, but I can't talk bad about this side and I can't talk bad about that side, because then everyone's so confused. You got to just pick one and join. What do you say for us going into 2024 to go against the tide if you got to pick one and join? Like, how do we survive as evangelical Christians in a world that says you're either for us or against us, so get out of our way, you know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you do have to be slow to speak and quick to listen, because if you say something and you touch on a sensitive topic before you've gotten to know someone, the relationship is over before it begins.
So what you're saying is we can't have these conversations on Twitter, X.
No.
Yeah.
No. I'm attempting to do much less on social media because I've realized that you really can't do very much at all. Because it's performative. Twitter, I think on the podcast, I've compared it to a middle school cafeteria, where you walk in, you find the table that is your group. This is my group. This table is my group. And then you immediately start throwing tater tots at all the other tables.
Right.
Here's why that table's stupid. Oh, the cheerleaders. You want to sit at the cheerleader table? They are so, and then tater tot, tater tot, tater tot. And I've found that I'm not very good at resisting the urge to pick up a tot.
It's my favorite thing when you talk about the fights you get on Twitter on the podcast.
It's not good for my soul, Jamie. It's not good for my soul, because you want to act like you're Mr. Rogers and you're just, calm and smiley throughout. But on the inside, you start to get really, really angry. It really is a test of your sanctification to try to engage. And there are too many particularly young Christian men on Twitter who look at it as a blood sport. This is a blood sport, and I need to establish it's like a young soldier or a young, warrior in a Native American tribe where you're trying to earn your first feather. You're trying to earn feathers. So I'm going to take down that guy. And there's just
fight to the death.
Yes. It's the, Ben Shapiro destroys whatever, fill in the blank. Could be anything.
Barbie, right?
Destroys
These
Barbie.
days,
Destroys Joe Biden. Destroys, and that's the spirit of the age in some forms of social media, where it is all about destruction of your opponent. And you cannot have, when it's considered a blood sport, you can't have a friendly conversation that ends in a draw.
Yeah.
Because a draw is a loss. For so many people. So
there's no saying, hey, we just don't see this right.
Let's just agree to disagree.
Yeah.
No, I do have a few friends that started out as Twitter attackers, and I just kept trying to be nice to them long enough that we're actually friends now. I don't know if that's a good way to make friends.
It's a lot of work, I'll tell you that much.
The time investment, to a certain extent, Twitter is, for me, it became like allowing the whole world to line up at the front door of your house, take turns ringing the doorbell to argue with you.
Yeah.
And at some point you say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to answer the door because this really isn't an effective use of
Mm.
my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it could go on forever. It can go on for freaking ever.
Forever and ever.
So, but back to your question,
Yeah.
next year, what do? We work on relationships.
Mm.
We work on relationships. We don't work on talking points and, here's three points where I can argue anyone out of this position into this position, because you can't, because it's really more about everybody's fears, everybody's concerns, and they're at an emotional level, not at a logical level.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll never get them to talk about their fears when they consider you're an enemy and you're trying to take something away from them that's important to them.
Yeah.
And tribe is extremely important, as we are tribal beings, humanity, we naturally form tribes for protection. So it's what we can do next year is listen, offer friendship, and stay kind of perpetually affirming and positive and cheerful. And then, hopefully that leads some people to say, why the heck are you so positive and cheerful? And like, well, I'm looking at everything through the lens of the Bible. I'm not looking at through the lens of critical race theory. I'm not looking at it through the lens of, is this or isn't this socialism? All of those things are American constructs in this moment in our culture. What I'm looking through the lens of is the Sermon on the Mount. So everything, every issue, every policy issue that we're ever going to discuss, let's start with the Sermon on the Mount. Let's not start with, what Calvin might have or might not have said in Geneva in, whatever year. Let's not start with what Reagan said or what Trump said or what anybody said, what Marx said. Let's start with what Jesus said and apply that across everything. And there are good resources for that, where I think we can pull people a little bit away from, yes, but Ben Shapiro said, or Tucker Carlson said, or this is what they said on MSNBC, or this is what, AOC and the squad said. Say, well, no, what did Jesus say? What does the Old Testament say? What do the psalmists say? And then how does that apply? And it's okay if we come to different policy conclusions while we're trying to apply the Sermon on the Mount to modern living, because we're going to come to different policy conclusions.
Totally. And that is really scary for some people.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very scary. It makes me wonder about Christian media. You and I have both produced things and Christians, and I love you guys are trying to help people think positively about Christianity and a post-Christian culture. And I'm trying to bring conversations to the table that make people love Jesus more. And you did a video on race in America, which got a couple of views up on YouTube. 1.1 million, I last checked, it had. And I think my question for you is, what keeps you wanting to stay engaged in these conversations? Because it's not like you're just having these conversations around your dining room table with your wife and your kids and a couple of friends. You're having them in a vulnerable medium where we get to just listen to you guys have conversations. And what keeps you wanting to do this? Why stay engaged in these conversations?
To be perfectly frank, some days I don't
want to.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I just sit this one out? I'm, when you go for sacred cows, we are always prone as a people to idolatry. It's like, this is what's most important to me, and this is what's going to keep me safe. So this is what I'm going to put up on a pedestal without even thinking about it. And when you poke at some of those false gods, some of those idols, like national security, like having enough to support a family at a, upper middle class lifestyle as a mark of being a faithful Christian. When you poke at some of those things, rocks hit you in the side of the head pretty quickly, and that is exhausting. It really is exhausting to just try to read a book or eat your dinner and have pebbles just constantly hitting you in the side of the head. So there are points where I was like, I just really want to keep doing this. But honestly, it's the guys like the guy at the water park, There's
Mhm.
just, or I was at a coffee shop. I was at a coffee shop in Wheaton, and someone in front of me grabbed a napkin and wrote on it, your voice on the Holy Post is invaluable, and just
Mhm.
left the napkin on the counter because I was next in line behind him, and then
Yeah.
walked away. So I get up there and here's a napkin just saying
Mhm.
thank you to me. So,
Yeah.
and that napkin is, if you're out there, the napkin is on my refrigerator
Mm.
right now, because in the morning I really need that,
Mhm.
because I'm an introvert. I'm not a flamethrower. I don't want to be Tucker Carlson on either side. I don't,
Yeah.
the liberal version of Tucker Carlson or the conservative version of Tucker Carlson. That's not how I'm wired, which is probably why
Mhm.
I should be doing it, because I don't enjoy it. Because if you enjoy it, you probably
Mhm.
shouldn't be doing it. But I
Mhm.
do need those encouragements, just the note from someone saying, thank you for doing what you're doing and
Mhm.
keep it up. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll try. But you also need breaks,
Yeah.
like
I
just,
would not have known that you were an introvert, Phil.
I'm totally an introvert. That's why I'm an animator and a
That's why
puppeteer.
you want to make things.
Yeah, I want to make things, and I want to make things from behind, like puppetry, from behind a
Yeah.
counter. I want to go behind a counter, and then I'm going to entertain you without you ever seeing me. And
Wow. It's like, okay.
yeah, animation is the same way. I'm going to bring something else to life that will be my avatar. So
Uh-huh.
Bob the Tomato was me projecting me into the world without having to show up visually.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yet every single week you have to
I
show up not
know.
visually,
I
but
know.
your whole self.
I know. Scary. It's scary, Jamie.
Well, good job of stepping into your fear
I
and
do. It helps to have Sky around, because Sky's kind of fearless, because
mhm.
he doesn't really care what people think. Or at least if he does, he's
Do
really
you?
good at hiding it. Yes, partly because there's the other part of the work that I do, which is trying to teach kids the Bible. And
Mm.
I know that if a whole bunch of parents get mad at me
Ooh.
because of something I said about Donald Trump or something I said about race, then they go to all their parent friends and say, don't buy any of his kid stuff anymore. And that's happened. I've had that happen. And that's
So
like,
where's the
oh,
line for you then? Because this is like, I mean, this is hard because you're having to say,
yes,
do I say what I feel and then they don't buy my stuff, or do they buy my
right,
stuff and I go in a corner and just don't say anything?
right. I know. I wrestle with that. My wife knows how much I wrestle with that. It's like, oh, how visible do I want to be on this issue? How visible do I want to be on that issue? And that's another reason for pulling back on social media, because when you do social media, you can end up with what you said in front of anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
There are only so many people listen to the podcast,
Uh-huh.
and they tend to self filter.
Uh-huh.
So if they don't like what we're about, they're already gone.
They're
They've
not
already
coming back every week.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm
Mhm.
really trying to live like two secret lives, like
Yeah.
Clark Kent and Superman. I don't know which one is which. I don't know
I
if the
know.
podcast guy is Superman or the kids, the Mr. Rogers guy is
Yeah.
Superman, or neither of them are Superman. They're both just different Clark Kents that are like, hey, you're really messing with my business over here. Can you knock it
Yeah.
off over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the puzzle of my life, Jamie.
I've had, not to this extreme by any ways, but I have been known to be able to hang out in different camps. I'm talking church
Yes.
camp, not
Yeah.
camp we go to, but different tribes, maybe I should say. And we, the Washington Post did an article on our family in 2021, maybe. And I was supposed to do a couple events around the SBC convention, and I got asked to not come
Hmm.
because of that article. And it's that same kind of dilemma, as in,
Yep.
I didn't lose any sleep. It is what it is. But it is these things where you're like, if I say what I think, I know some people are going to be like, she's not on our team anymore, or he's not
Yep.
on our team. And the truth is, guess what? I bet we're on the same team. Like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? It's so crazy. It's like,
Well, the problem is how
there's,
we're defining team. The problem
thank you.
is, yes, and it's very, part of me just wants to say, if you define team that way, I don't know that I can talk to you at all, because we're looking at the world. You're not looking at the world through a biblical lens. At the same
Right.
time, you think you are, and you deeply resent if I say you're not. If
Mm.
I say that all of your political positions are filtered through the truth of Scripture. And Scripture is how you have come to every political position, which also happened to line up perfectly with the platform of one or the other political parties in America in 2023. So if I point that out, that's really unsettling to say that I'm not sure all of your positions are actually biblical. I think they're cultural. So you have to be careful because at the same time, if you're saying, and I would really love if you let me help you teach the Bible to your children. It's like, wait, what? Wait, go back to the first thing you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't exactly know what to do about that because I'm conscious. I am limiting my audience for teaching the Bible by trying to help, the pastor that's hanging on by the skin of his teeth.
Yeah.
Because, 2020 exposed things in his congregation that he had no idea were there. And he doesn't know how much longer he can keep doing this.
Yeah. Which is a lot of pastors in
America.
America.
Yeah. And it's two different callings, so part of me is a little frustrated with God for handing me
I was going to say, you need to talk to the big man upstairs about that.
Which of these is your priority for me right now? And also, and then here's this other voice, and which of these will help me sustain an upper middle class lifestyle?
There you go. How am I going to pay my bills?
Yeah. How do I pay my bills? Lord.
And go to those indoor water parks again.
Yeah. With my grandkids, they love the indoor water park in November.
Come on.
God, you know how important indoor water parks are to small children. So which of these paths are you directing me towards that will be a land awash in milk, honey, and indoor water parks? Boy, that's challenging because now you're looking at your own idols. And I hate looking at my own idols.
Yeah,
Jamie.
Those are the worst.
That's not fair.
That's
not how it's supposed to go because I'm an influencer. So I help other people look at their
Point
idols.
out their own idols.
Yes. Yes.
This is why I love you. Phil, we almost met. I was going to tell you this at the beginning. Yeah, we almost met.
And then the SBC wouldn't let you come?
No, this was at something else.
Oh, okay.
I've actually been at an event with you twice. The first one, I don't remember the name of it. And I have very low remembrance of it. It was pre-2020. Who knows when that was? But we were at the same event. It wasn't really an event. You did the thing with Kirk Cameron on TBN, the Think, Pray, Vote thing.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I'd love to hear if you had thoughts about it. I also was on there,
Did
and I
you?
was,
Were you?
Yeah. So, full disclosure, I love my friend Lori Crouch. That's where my tie. That's I have a personal relationship with her. Love her.
Matt texts me about every other month.
Okay, perfect. So here we are. I was really surprised to be invited to that show.
Yeah, so was I.
The Think, Pray, Vote with Kirk Cameron, because I thought to myself, I don't know if Kirk has seen or listened to my show or anything, because I just thought, I don't think that I would have been invited. I'm a Christian, I love Jesus, all the things.
Yeah.
But I think
that's
we might
not what
lean
the show
different.
is about.
All that to say, you were backstage and you were there, and I was nervous to tell you how much I loved your show, but we were in the same room
we were
at
in
the
the green
same
room?
time, and there was hardly anyone there. I had my moment, and I let it pass.
Man. Yeah. I actually said at one point to the person who was inviting me, and I forget who it was, are you sure you want me there?
Are you sure you have the right Phil Visher?
Yeah. And they said, no, we want a range. And then, and then I did my thing with Kirk Cameron, and I tried to present, possibilities that every biblical issue may not line up just on one side of the aisle, that there may be issues that line up on one or the other side of the aisle. And he was like, oh, well, okay. And I wasn't quite sure where he was. And then I walked out of the back of the studio and saw his Jeep. And his Jeep, you saw the Jeep too, had two big Trump flags tied to the back of it. So he's driving around Southern California with two giant Trump flags on his Jeep. And that, oh, okay.
So then you knew. I know.
Jamie.
I was actually really happy for them to put that show out, and the fact that they invited you and they invited me.
Yeah, and they invited Tony Evans, so they tried.
They tried. Yes. And so I was actually really grateful for that. And I love all of my time on Better Together TBN.
If they do one in 2024, I don't know that either of us will be invited back.
We can do our own. I'll come to Chicago. We can all hang out and do our
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah, do our own thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's where we almost met, and anyhow, here we are.
Oh, that was exciting. That's
I want to
exciting
say
just to know that we were that
just
close.
to know that we were so close to meeting.
That's exciting.
I want to say two things, and then I'm going to ask you what you're reading.
Yeah.
I want to say that I don't think I've even told my audiences because I don't know that they would know, but I got invited to be the whole part of the Holy Post pundit.
Yeah.
My pundits.
You're a pundit.
Pundit. I don't even know what it actually means yet, but when I got the email, I also said, "Are you sure that you are sent this to the right person?" Because then I saw the list of people, and I thought to myself, they definitely thought that they got the wrong person. But no, John was like, "You're in," and I'm so honored.
Yeah, well, we want a range of people. We want voices that we can call on for different things. Like, oh, this story just broke. Who on this list would be really good at talking about this story? And, there are those stories where it's going to be, hey, where's Jamie? We need Jamie.
There it is. We don't need a scholar. We don't need a scholar.
ASAP.
Yes.
Bring in the influencer. What does your bio say you are?
Like my bio that sends out to like a speaker or
like your bio that goes out.
I'm a podcaster and an author.
Okay.
Mom to 4. I mean, all the regular stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
we need a mom of 4. Do we have any of our pundits mothers of 4?
And I'm in. There you are.
There you are. Yeah. Happy to have you aboard.
Super excited. Phil, an honor to have you on. I hope I still have listeners and no one's mad at us. I always feel, listen, I don't know, now that I know a little bit more about you, sometimes when I have conversations like this, like I overthink things. Like I'm like, okay, like I'm like online friends with Candace. Is she going to be mad at me? Like, do you ever overthink things like that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big overthinker.
For me, one of the things I think of is, okay, we just took that position. Will Russell Moore still come on our show? Or have we?
Russell Moore's gotta love the Holy Post.
He does. But I'm always worried, like at what point do we become something that would make his life even harder if he appears on it?
I think that you got a long ways to go before that. Poor Russell. I know I'm an overthinker. I'll overthink this, but you know what? Like, here we are, and I'm so happy that you came
Beth
on.
Moore even less likely to let me interview her?
Have you interviewed Beth?
No, Caitlin did.
Caitlin
gets to, because Caitlin's Caitlin.
Yeah.
And Phil's Phil. Phil doesn't get to. I don't know why, but
she would love you. She would love you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd love to hear. What are you reading these days, Phil?
Well, you see, Jamie, we do this podcast, and we mostly interview authors, and so we get a lot of books. So we get a lot.
Believe me, I know.
A lot of books. So here's a few that I've been reading lately that I've really enjoyed. First of all, my co-host, Caitlin Chess, has a new book that's about to come out called The Ballot and the Bible, about how Christians through American history have attempted to use the Bible to argue for different political positions. How the Bible...
I can't wait to read it. I have it.
How the Bible has been employed in politics throughout American history, not just like the last 5 years, but like since George Washington, since the beginning.
I can't wait.
Even before then. Yeah, that's good. So that's Caitlin Chess's The Ballot.
Funny story about Caitlin, real quick, Phil.
Yeah.
My husband also listens to the show with me sometimes, and I love Caitlin. I just am like, she's so smart. I love Caitlin so much. And when we were in Italy last summer, we landed the same time, and we ran into Caitlin at the airport. Like, we kind of texted, and yeah. And so we're leaving, and I tell my husband, I'm like, that's Caitlin from the Holy Post. He's like, she's so young. Like, he just thought this wisdom was just yes.
So he'd never seen her picture.
Never seen her. No. And I'm just like, I know.
She's a pup. She's
young and smart. I love it.
Yeah. Young, smart, and orthodox. Wow. Crazy. Okay. Second one. I just interviewed Karen Swallow Pryor about her new book. And so that's the one I just finished reading, which I really enjoyed. It comes out like, it's early August, I think. The Evangelical Imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about,
I love Karen.
Yeah. It's about how, we think our reading of the Bible shapes how we view everything else. But very often, everything else shapes how we read the Bible. And so specifically, how our imagination, how we see reality. One of the interesting quotes early on is, it is very hard to desire something you cannot imagine.
Mm.
So your imagination, what is within your realm of imagination generates what you desire, generates how you view the world. And so her examination as a professor of literature is, let's look at how evangelicalism and Victorian England, shaped each other, because the evangelicals in England largely shaped the Victorian era, the ethics of the Victorian era. And let's examine it by looking at Victorian literature. So the writings of everyone from, Kipling through Dickens, through all the way up through like H.G. Wells. Let's look at their writing and see the themes that were coming up in Victorian England that we're still wrestling with in American evangelicalism today.
Wow.
And when we're aware of those, we can see, actually, the way we view this didn't come from the Bible. It
Ding,
came
ding, ding.
from Victorian England. Okay, that's The Evangelical Imagination by Karen Swallow Prior. And then the other one, I'd probably, well, if you want history, Daniel Hummel's The Rise and Fall of Dispensationalism. Rapture, the Antichrist, the Beast, the 666, the Left Behind books, all of that.
Speaking of Kirk Cameron,
where did it all come from? And how what's amazing is how recent in history most of that stuff is.
Wow.
That it really didn't exist before about 1830.
When you guys talk about that on the show,
yeah.
I mean, I grew up Southern Baptist. I read all the books. I grew up.
Yeah.
It really causes me to pause a lot.
Yeah, that's an eye opener.
Kind of have my mind. Yeah.
That's an eye opener, because you can find the roots of a lot of the stuff that's going on today, including culture warring, that was influenced by this notion that Christ's return is imminent, could happen any moment. And because of that, we need to focus not on helping disenfranchised African Americans get the vote in America, because that's rearranging the deck furniture on the Titanic, because the ship is sinking. So global missions is the one thing we need to focus on. The one thing we need to focus on is global missions. And if that means, and we're talking 1880s at this point, 1870s. So during Reconstruction, we as a church, as a conservative church, made a conscious move away from helping African Americans and Reconstruction to trying to reunify the North American white church for the cause of global evangelism. And we threw
that'll
African
ruffle
Americans,
some feathers.
Yeah, we threw the African American church under the bus so that we could reunify the white church and bring the gospel to the ends of the earth, because the return of Jesus was imminent. And that's to start to unpack some of those, pull on those threads. It's like, holy cow, that's amazing. And then I'll just mention one other, because it's really fun, but it's headier. Christopher Watkins' Biblical Critical Theory. The book is called Biblical Critical Theory: How the Bible's Unfolding Story Makes Sense of Modern Life and Culture. And he's responding to what is critical theory in the culture today, whether it's, critical race theory or critical literature theory. There's lots of different critical theories. What is that? How does that work? And does the Bible do the same thing? Can you do the same thing, which is looking for the structures behind the walls through a set of assumptions? So let's start with the biblical assumptions. And now let's look for the structures behind the walls of our society and our culture today through biblical assumptions. Fascinating book. So there.
Did you guys have him on recently?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I've heard this. Yes, it's really good.
Look it up.
It's really good.
It's really good stuff.
It is really good. Well, Phil, thanks for coming on the happy hour. You made my day.
Well, Jamie, was it happy enough?
It was happy. It was
you
happy.
think did it qualify as a happy hour?
It qualified.
Okay.
So it was great. It was great. For
Because
real.
sometimes the news can be a little, gloomy sometimes.
It can, but it depends on how you talk about it and how you make it. And here we are. It's good.
That's what I try to do. That's
what you do. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jamie.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you want more conversations just like that from my podcast, The Happy Hour, check out these links over here. We're going to have more shows for you. And to make sure that you never miss any of our conversations, go ahead and subscribe. I don't know what you're waiting on. Thanks for watching.